For the longest time, my favorite video games to play have always been RPGs. From my early childhood playing flash games like Adventure Quest Worlds and Dragon Fable, to now where a big chunk of my content is talking about Deltarune, these types of games have always been prevalent in my life. Within many of the RPGs I've experienced, the sheer creativity found within the weapons, enemies, characters, and worlds pulled me in hard. Games like Paper Mario, Earthbound, Lisa, Suits, Undertale, and Epic Battle Fantasy IV all have these incredibly creative worlds that I loved going through, and I'm even playing through Bug Fables as we speak. Now, if you're familiar with most of these games, you'll notice a pattern. I'm very interested in the more quirky RPGs. What can I say? Unpredictability and wackiness are things I very much enjoy. And back in the day, my love for RPGs didn't just stop at traditional games, as I found myself playing many different RPGs on the Roblox platform. Now, when I first joined Roblox, the RPGs on the platform were pretty basic. You'd go out with your copper sword, kill enemies, get gold, and then go back into town to buy weapons and armor. All the while, each enemy you face just walks towards you with the only difference being their health and damage. Oh, and there was always a healing fountain in the middle of the starting town. Kind of a weird thing to point out, but every game just had it. There were more interesting RPGs like the Mystic Land 2, Guest Quest, and Dungeon Delver, but I never really got into those games when I was younger. But as the years went by and Roblox's game developers improved, RPGs on the platform became very impressive. Many of them have those fantastical worlds, interesting enemies, and powerful weapons. But not only that, a lot of them are pretty darn weird. And that's what we're gonna be talking about today. We're gonna go over 5 Roblox RPGs that I've played in the past, analyzing each of their weird and unique aspects, and explaining why I like the game as a whole. Now before we start, everything I'll be talking about will be my own personal analysis and opinion. So if I get lore-related stuff and artistic intentions wrong, my bad. And before we start, there's gonna be spoilers for each of these games. So if you want to check them out before being spoiled, the links are in the description below. Anyways, without further ado, let's dive into the fantastical world of bizarre Roblox RPGs. Fantastic Frontier was the first Roblox RPG I remember dedicating myself to. Before that, I'd only play RPGs on Roblox for like a day or two and then quit. But this game was certainly different. I remember when I first started playing, I went into town and talked to the blacksmith for a weapon. And that's when I laid eyes upon giant swords for sale that were way beyond my price range. And after seeing all the cool weapons this game had to offer, I was absolutely hooked. Fantastic Frontier was the first Roblox game that showed me how good RPGs could be on this platform. And the main reason for that was because you could actually explore the world. If you didn't know, a lot of these Roblox RPG games back in the day were pretty linear with what you could do. You just go further and further across a map or through portals to kill stronger enemies to level up, with the need to explore out of this linear structure being minimal or not at all. Fantastic Frontier was the first Roblox RPG game I remember that disregarded levels entirely. Instead, everything you needed to get stronger was found in gold. You use gold to gain new weapons, armor, and health upgrades, and the ways to acquire gold absolutely floored me at the time. You don't just kill monsters for their loot and sell it. No, you can acquire gold through mining, fishing, hunting rare birds, farming, or just going through the map and foraging for rare plants and items. A common money-making method for 11-year-old Kustopia was just going out until my inventory was full, doing a little bit of everything and then bolting it back into town, avoiding all the terrifying monsters, because if you die, you lose all the non-equipped items in your inventory. Yes, Fantastic Frontier was the first RPG version of an extraction shooter. Not only did the game encourage exploration for gold, but health upgrades and unique shops were spread across the map, requiring players to go out in order to find special gear. And while going out on these explorations, you'll sometimes come across monsters. And if you do, you need to run. Not only are these abominations terrifying, but most enemies at the start of the game can straight up one-shot you. Like seriously, the amount of monsters that you can actually take in a fight starting out are minuscule. And when they spawn, they just wander around the world, meaning there's no telling what you'll encounter. I could be chased by wolves one second, and the next I'd be attacked by crocodile men or whatever the hell that thing is. Not only that, but a lot of them have disgusting amounts of health, to the point where even endgame players struggle taking some of these guys down. And with how glitchy the combat can be, it's like the game actively discourages you from fighting monsters. But despite my own struggles to get stronger, I managed to get a hold of powerful weapons and armor that gave me 87% damage reduction and a ton of regen. And even then, I still get hit hard. Gameplay and difficulty aside, the world of Fantastic Frontier is absolutely incredible. Just getting into the game and seeing this fat bear being the guy you sell all your stuff to set the tone perfectly for me. Fantastic Frontier is an incredibly weird RPG. There's a frogman who gives you hunting quests, crocodiles who run a deli, a guy trapped in a cage underground who sells you spicy chicken, this guy, and even the gnome district. The weapons get absolutely insane, the NPCs are a bunch of crazy people, you can buy a house, you can be a house, and even watch a bunch of frogs gamble. Another aspect of this game that I absolutely love is how the items and character designs add to the Frontier's world building. You've got this enemy right here, the tall bear. It's big and scary. But then you get to the Black Rock Giant, and look at the pelt it's wearing. Looks pretty familiar. There's enemies called dolls, but there are also otherworldly doll hunters. Items like Giant's Corn establish that the humans of this world took their agricultural practices from giants. There are birds in this game with above average intelligence, and a lot more. But I do wish that the NPC's programming got to show that ecosystem more, because right now, the NPCs don't really interact with one another. When it comes to Fantastic Frontier's art style, the characters, weapons, and armor are made up entirely of squares and rectangles, with every human NPC being faceless. And as for the world itself, Fantastic Frontier combines Roblox's terrain making system with its own blocky art style. But despite the two different styles, it doesn't come across as unnatural. The frontier itself contains forests, volcanoes, mountains, and icy tundras. Yeah, there's weirdness that trickles around, but the world is relatively grounded. It feels like a classic fantasy world. But then the developers added the nightmare. This vast, bizarre world found inside the mind of a giant sleeping rat. It's a world that takes the relatively grounded frontier and completely flips it on its head. The monsters and items in this world feel like they came straight out of an abstract painting. Their designs look incredibly unnatural, but you just can't look away. The items are all odd and feel like their own little art sculptures. And because this was a dream world, the developers had full creative freedom to add whatever they wanted. You could be a surgeon who specializes in treating power lamps. You could race a clown across a supermarket. And the transition from a mansion to a theater and then to a corporate office feels so weird, yet so intriguing. And that sharp contrast between the two worlds enhances the experience traversing the nightmare. It's like, yeah, I was traveling to a large mountain a couple hours ago, and now I'm on a dark stretch of industrial road to fight horrors beyond my comprehension. And out of every boss I've fought in a Roblox game, nothing has ever come close to Mr. 58 in terms of design. I don't know what I'm looking at, but I do know he's big, scary, and has a giant gun as one of his heads. Overall, Fantastic Frontier on its own was a very interesting Roblox RPG, one that felt incredibly unique at the time. But with the inclusion of the nightmare, it created even more depth and intrigue to the game. And the combination of beautiful, powerful weapons, bizarre, abstract monsters, and a strange mix of modern and fantasy make it a bizarre yet interesting RPG. Now, when I was writing my segment on Pilgrimmed, I remembered that, oh yeah, the game got a big update. But I don't have to play it, I can just talk about my experience playing the game as of now. And then I realized that was stupid. So I booted up Pilgrimmed and spent 2 days going through it. And, oh my god, I think this is the most enjoyment I've ever had playing a Roblox game on my own. But we'll get into that later. Right now, if you didn't know, Pilgrimmed is an open-world RPG where you collect and craft weapons, fight powerful bosses, and uncover the secrets found in this strange world. It's a real treat. Like Fantastic Frontier, you're thrown into this world and have a lot of freedom to explore, with that exploration being incredibly rewarding. And out of every game I'll be talking about, I feel like Pilgrimmed has the most polished combat system, with parrying, dodging, and other movement mechanics being a lot of fun to use. You even get this awesome magnetic grappling hook late in the game, and let me tell you, I abuse the hell out of that thing because it's a lot of fun. Continuing on, an aspect of the game that I regretfully didn't dive into more was the creation of builds. There are a ton of different weapons, outfits, perks, and accessories one can use to make their character powerful. You can experiment with so many different things. Giant swords, machine guns, a big-ass bubble blower, a pinwheel, a freaking minigun, and even a giant mace in the shape of a shrimp. All things that I did not use. I might go back later to experiment though. Anyways, the factions are all super interesting, and the maps and environments of Pilgrimmed are also really good. It has grass, desert, snow, and lava areas like a lot of other RPGs, but the more you explore, the more you'll uncover a wide variety of bizarre areas. That's actually something else I really like about Pilgrimmed. I find its escalation really funny. It actually starts pretty grounded for an RPG. You fight bandits, slimes, and other stuff, with the bosses at this stage being a Thief King, a big slime, a big snake, a big turtle, and a big squid. And then it escalates to fighting the Avatar of Chaos, an interdimensional bounty hunter, an evil entity that invades your dreams that can speed blitz you, a guy with a pinwheel, and now, with the latest update, you can fight a chicken with a knife. A boss, mind you, that took me more tries than the final boss. These fun and unique boss fights are the biggest contributors to Pilgrimmed's wackiness. Not only are most of them pretty fun, but if you go into things blind, you'll genuinely never guess the things that'll happen. I certainly didn't guess that I'd run into a pineapple man wielding a shrimp mace that attacked me using magic dolphins. But while I do enjoy this game for how fun it is and its absolute absurdity, what's also super impressive to me is how stylistically every boss fits into the world, with nothing seeming out of place. The earlier bosses definitely give off this nostalgic feeling of old Roblox, with bosses like the Mondo Squid, Magma Turtle, Granny, and Pop-Off Pirate looking straight out of the 2011-2013 era of the platform. But as you go further into the game, that sense of nostalgia kind of goes away as the bosses become more and more unique. But despite this, those older bosses don't seem out of place, due to the game consistently throwing wacky, crazy crap at us. And while the game does get darker and more serious by the time the player reaches the Morning Hollow, the game still shows its silliness through its items, enemies, and characters. You'll go through this absolutely terrifying metro tunnel with creepy flashing eyes staring at you, and then immediately encounter members of a bear mafia. It's really impressive how the developers of the game are able to add all of this ridiculous stuff without messing with the game's tone. Not only that, but all the wacky, ridiculous stuff adds to the game's world building. Of course, the land full of scrap and garbage would be home to disheveled fruit people, giant cicadas, and massive worms. We can even see bipedal bears running through the landfill with boxes, with them being the suppliers and scavengers for the bear mafia, who seem to be trying to rival the massive factory found within the area. Despite the game's absolute insanity, all of these moving parts make the world seem more grounded. It's absurd, but it also feels believable. When I discovered that the guardian of the game's final area was a rusty pig with a machine gun, that didn't feel out of place at all. While Pilgrimmed does have levels of weirdness that rival Fantastic Frontier, its world building makes it seem a lot more grounded and real. And hell, they had a crossover with Fantastic Frontier and it didn't feel out of place. It truly is one of the most creative and entertaining RPG games on Roblox. It's a 9 out of 10 and the Cobalt Caverns need to be erased from existence. Now, Lore Game is by far the least traditional RPG on this list. There's no leveling, there's only a small number of enemies, and the game seems to emphasize exploration more than combat. But despite all that, it's still considered an RPG, and it's a game that I played significantly a few years back. Lore Game takes place in either a massive cave structure or deep underground. Whatever the case, the entire world is shrouded in darkness, with the players right in the center of it. and it's their job to explore, search for secrets, and uncover the mysteries of this world. I had an absolute blast going through this game with my friends, and its emphasis on exploration and parkour mixed with the mysteries behind it made me want to keep playing. Every new and secret area you come across feels rewarding, and each location is extremely interesting. Bulwark is one of my favorite towns in a Roblox RPG. It kind of serves as the hub where everyone hangs out, and I gotta say, the feeling of exploring aimlessly for an hour before finally making your way back to this town full of light is a genuine relief. The grub deli that hides a cyst cult underneath was one of my favorite locations when I first started playing the game, and I remember getting stuck at the Paladin's Church for hours because I sucked at the parkour. And while I sadly never got to do it myself, the 5th layer of this world being this frozen hellscape is incredibly interesting, and makes me question what the other layers would be, with the main area we explore being the 4th layer. The enemies, despite being scarce, add a lot more detail to the world around them. The main enemies you'll find throughout the game are these weird constructs that the players can hunt, as you could sell their arms for profit. You could use one of their corpses as a weapon, and there was even a fight pit where you could watch 2 Eshians battle while making bets on them. I find it very interesting that a lot of the money-making methods in this game revolve around these guys. Other creatures like whales and squids are these massive behemoths that add to the ecosystem of these caves. Not only can players ride on the whales, but said whales are also able to be attacked and eaten by the squids. The fauna having this predator-prey relationship is really cool. Other creatures like the sealgares camouflage themselves as rocks in order to ambush people, while bronze take items from players back to their nests. These behaviors emphasize how everything in this world is fighting for their own survival in different ways, and it sets the tone very well. The game even has its very own boogeyman-like creature. Despite the world being pretty bleak, it still has its humor. The in-game loading screens have their own little quirky dialogue, and the dark atmosphere and terrifying monsters are contrasted by the goofy hand-drawn faces on all the characters. And the game has no shortage of ridiculous NPCs. But in my opinion, the weirdest and my personal favorite aspect of lore game is the people that play it. There's a really interesting rule that if you spoil any in-game content, you'll get your mouth stitched shut in-game. So I'm gonna put a spoiler warning on this segment. Anyways, Bulwark, despite supposedly being this peaceful haven, was also home to constant free-for-all brawls. I'm convinced that everyone who plays this game is just straight up insane, and I've met a wide cast of crazy characters. There was a goblin man who kept demanding people's gold, a guy who just kept throwing worms or maggots at people, there's a wide assortment of pot creatures, a pot king who ruled over those pot creatures, and a lot more. People in this game like to roleplay as quirky NPCs, and you know what? So do I. I go through lore game as McClare, a bard with beautiful hair, who enchants the people of Bulwark with his banjo. After losing his massive fortune from the gambling pits, he sits in town and sings about his woes. It's honestly a lot of fun, and the reason why I haven't explored everything in lore game yet is because I was too busy LARPing. But I really like it when an RPG's fanbase is so dedicated to roleplaying. It's a great time. Overall, lore game's dark atmosphere, strange locations, interesting fauna, and absolutely insane player base make it a Roblox RPG I adored playing. Oh boy, do I have a lot to say about BlockTales. For one, it's the only game on my list that actually has a linear story. While the other games I've talked about are open world, this one is more akin to Paper Mario and Bug Fables. Now, I actually like BlockTales. I think the art style is top notch, the different tools are really cool, and the game's animation is great. The ability to choose different cards to create your own build was interesting as well. And while I did enjoy encountering all the different enemies, I feel like as the game went on, the battles got more and more sluggish. And I like turn-based games. You can tell from my roleplay videos. But a few of these enemies were kinda painful to get through. The Ancients, while super cool design-wise, was such a slog. And a lot of the Chapter 5 enemies were genuinely annoying. But despite all that, I never really hated the combat. But it definitely did get boring sometimes. I played the game with 3 of my friends, and we were certainly a team. I was our DPS, one of my friends was our buffer, we had one guy who was the jack of all trades, and my buddy Jack of one trade. Seriously, he had like 100 health and all he did was summon the gorilla and sleep the rest of his turns. I genuinely think the amount of times he attacked was in the single digits, and with his gorilla, we had a team of 5. It was definitely fun playing with all of them, but I don't think I'd play the game on my own. I actually had a friend who genuinely hated the game. So before I get into what I liked, here's what he had to say about the game. Okay, that's enough of that. Anyways, while I did enjoy this game the least out of any of the ones on my list, I think its art style is unmatched. I really like the overall setting of BlockTales. The way everything in the game emulates old Roblox is really cool to me, especially as someone who joined back in 2013.
Chapter 3 was so infuriating, because I know this builder is evil as shit from
The methods of attacking all being taken from classic Roblox gear was super cool to see, and the maps were all really well made and nostalgic, but for some reason, my personal favorite areas got to be the train at the start of Chapter 3. I don't know why, but it's so comforting to be in. I think the items all having these weird little sound bites when hovered over like the old Roblox gear was a nice touch. And the enemies all emulating old Roblox characters and monsters was super cool.
Where they've used all their collective brain power to dupe the most boring enemies on the planet, but don't worry.
Not only did the game take from the old Roblox aesthetic, but I also think it took inspiration from other aspects of the 2000s and early 2010s. I adore the Yume Nikki art style during the final area of Chapter 3. And those bright, vibrant colors found within battles reminded me a lot of that early 2010s internet aesthetic. It made the area, despite not taking from that Roblox style, feel nostalgic. And as for the temple in Chapter 4, I've got no clue what the significance of that is. Ancient Egyptian art is pretty rad though. The game, from start to finish, is full of quirky characters. I love the stupid statue enemies that just run you over. I went from loving those F creatures to absolutely hating them in the span of one battle. All the random NPCs were silly additions that I liked, and Azuri is a beautiful woman. But what I find super interesting is that despite BlockTales' completely cartoony style, I think it takes itself the most seriously out of any of these games. I guess they kinda have to since they're telling a straightforward story. Overall, while I'm not super keen on the game's balancing and fighting certain enemies, I had a great time with BlockTales. Its art style, settings, and characters are truly unmatched. As someone who's been playing Roblox for over a decade, it's kind of beautiful how far Roblox RPGs have come. And while I didn't get to talk about all the Roblox RPGs I like playing, at least I got to talk about the weirdest, most creative, and most entertaining ones I've played. Absurdity and weirdness are things I love seeing in RPGs. It's actually kind of inspiring. I feel like a lot of RPG games on Roblox sacrifice their creativity to appeal to a more general audience. But when it comes to these games, these creators were able to take these unnatural, insane ideas for worlds, creatures, and weapons and make them come to life. It just goes to show that if you have something unorthodox or bizarre you think is interesting, try conjuring it up. Anyways, thank you all for watching, my name's Kustopia, and I will see you all sometime soon.